straw. Kind of does the same thing. Restricts your breathing. That's all this thing does. Even though this looks cooler, it sounds cooler, it fits to your face. But when I was in college, my professor said, hey, instead of using an altitude training mask, grab a straw. Do that. Try to do some Wingate sprints or some air bike sprints or some rowing intervals with a straw in your mouth. You're going to hate life. So this is pretty much the best alternative to that. However, these do have a good place because, again, they're fixed. They restrict the nose. You don't have to worry about clenching your jaw and things like that to keep it in place. But the whole idea behind this is to restrict your breathing, which is going to help kind of overstress and overwork the lungs and the heart and all the breathing muscles. In other words, it's going to help that whole respiratory and the cardiac system work harder in a good way to get it stronger. That's the idea behind these. Science does prove that they do work, but the effect of high altitude training is that it doesn't work. It's not an effective way to train at a high altitude because you're still breathing the same type of oxygen-saturated air in your lungs. This doesn't change the oxygen content at all by any means. So my problem with these is that when you train with these, you're going to train at a deficit. So what I mean is that you're not going to get as much oxygen in your lungs, especially if you're not new to these. So a lot of people that just put them on, they crank out an entire workout, but yet everything that they do is at a sub-max level. Even it might even be a half of a max level, but yet they're still, their heart rate and their lungs are breathing at a max level. So your work output is going to be much less with this than it would be without it. So what you need to do is build up a tolerance. Even the manual recommends progressing toward this. Maybe just wear it around the house or just go for a walk. Even just wearing it for 20 minutes, you're going to have to focus on your breathing. Definitely don't go run a 5K with this right off the bat or do some heavy interval training at the gym with this on your first go around. There is a break-in process. Take your time, follow the instructions because, again, the whole idea to get in the gym is to train hard, but you don't want to hurt your training if you're not smart about it. You want to build up to where the levels say. So elevation training mask, even though it has nothing to do with elevation, it is a good type of respiratory training that you can use. But again, at what cost? There's always a risk involved if you're going to use this. I know a lot of people that do use it and they recommend it, but at the end of the day, it's all based on what you decide to use it with. But make sure you follow the instructions on how to use it properly. So that's it. Elevation training mask, we recommend it. We don't recommend it at the same time. It's really up to you. So other than that, that's all I have to say about that. Hey, if you've got a comment or a question, or maybe you've had...
All right, so it's to help train you for cardio. We're talking about getting oxygen to your body. Just to kind of wrap up some of our general concepts for athletic training and cardio. When we're talking about oxygen deprivation or altitude training, the idea is to create more red blood cells in your body, which will produce at a higher altitude. Typically, people who live at higher altitudes have more red blood cells, can intake more oxygen because oxygen levels are so much more scarce. So they're trying to get as much as possible by creating more red blood cells. So when they come down to a normal altitude to compete, the effects are temporary. Your red blood cell production changes over so quickly and so frequently that you're really only training at that high altitude for a very short-term benefit. So a lot of Olympic athletes swear by this altitude training method or a respiratory restriction method in order to increase temporarily the effects of more oxygen to their muscles to make them more efficient energy-wise. So, again, this type of training is not very safe if you have asthma or any respiratory-related stuff. But for the most part, you should be training cardio at the elevation that you're training. And the science behind the mask doesn't really back up any benefits long-term. So this would be terrible for an endurance, cardio endurance person. All right, so that's going to kind of wrap up our cardio quizzes. I am tentatively planning a unit test from everything from our previous quizzes. So our intro, all the way to conditioning, and then the cardio we just had. I want it fresh in your brains. That way you guys do well on the unit test, which will be a summative grade. And I'm thinking maybe next Wednesday-ish or Thursday, depending on how you guys do on the reviews and how comfortable you feel. Sound fair? Yes. Okay, cool. We don't have school the following Monday, the 17th, so after that day, I'd like to actually get started with our first aid and CPR. Alright? So I'll give you guys the rest of class to hang out, or if you have any makeup work, please turn that in. Or if you're curious, because your grades have been posted for progress reports, I have a bunch of you guys that are missing assignments. So if they're in the bins, I'll go through them, but please make sure you guys are turning in your work. Alright?
You just hear it.
Since I have to go like
That's a racket.
so I was like, I'm gonna like you can go like
I'll download it and we'll have it
that's where you give CPR to a baby.
You want it?
Yeah, I
just go like this. And then obviously for the adult you go like this.
I had this sex with my
go
ear.
Are you not going down there later today, or?
I'm gonna prepare for my book bags are really heavy because of the sex one.
You little fucker. Why are you trying to eat? You look away from me. I need room support.
Support corner.
Oh, I thought I won.
Ooh, that was way out. That was not even close.
Way out.
Yeah, we can wait like
You had to reach
5
that.
or 6 more minutes.
Definitely could reach
So it
that.
has 8 down the time. That'll be enough time for you to get down there and back up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You can just head out whenever you can.
Why do I just not be hitting shit? I hit
Came
shit
back on that.
for no reason.
Back on that. Oh, what?
Wait a minute. It like stood by me.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm doing. But there's a difference between quick reactions and shit reactions. Okay.
Okay. I mean, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Come on, Ty, I'm just very engaged.
Coronavirus.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, we have to put that.
Go on that.
We're gonna have to put that in quarantine. Wow. No, your dude just had the buzz. It just stopped. Yeah. Yeah, I just missed it.
Let me get you two points.
About another one, Mike.
No, I think 2 points is enough.
Oh, God. Oh, I got that boy, bro. Your dude, when he served me, he like And I was like, okay, the game lag. Hit that shit hard as fuck.
It was weird because I didn't even get a power shot on that one.
I am energy and mentally.
Yes, I always, when I was little, I used to get, actually made like something chocolate like something like that. No, it's so funny though. I thought it was when I was little.
They seem wrong.
Look at me. I wasn't very conscious. I had to break my ankle. So there's some chocolate kind of up here. I hit my toes. And one time I actually did break it. It was weird. It was bad. See you later. Have a good day.
It goes down for like 1 second, and there's like 40 people in it.
I would be so scared.
So I just got kicked by the baseball player.
I would just hug one of them.
And then he got tackled by the catcher. She was? Maybe. Yeah. Oh, bro, it was unreal. It was unreal. But this video is boring. This video is boring.
What? Oh, they were fucking tackles and all.
Like, cross country.
They was way too bad. They even tried.
The,
Like how long it was.
yeah, I know.
Wait, I got it.
Fake video, but. Yeah, it's a fake video though.
Oh, duh. I don't
What the fuck is he saying right now?
What do you care?
So what was that? Really cute. They say don't get this. Next door jumps the fence and tries to kill me. That's funny.
Maybe it's sweet. Maybe there's no wrong with it.
I'll just film myself. I'll show it on there. That's what I'm for you. Are they just football? Okay, I got you. I reverse. Yeah, I already had an idea of what I want to do. Bro, that's hard.
Mess it up and not buy it over there.
I will. Wait, if I don't have to look, you have to tell me. Alright?
Well, should I just give you my old white one?
Bro. Give me the old one that if I make it, I'll show you.
No, if I make a moment, I'll do that.
So if I make the old one big one,
Yes.
right?
You can do anything you want. No, they won't fix you.
I never did that. Sell it.
No, you're selling them to me.
Make the old one